Everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of The Nightmare Before Kissmas by Sarah Rusk, and this is a new 2024 release. It is a holiday romance, and it's not just a holiday romance, it is an adult queer adult romance. So I got the ARC copy at work. I wasn't able to finish it, I don't believe, before it came out, but now that I have read it, I do want to talk about it, say my opinion on it, to let you know if this is going to be a book that you're going to enjoy or not. Hopefully my opinion can kind of let you know about that. For me personally, this was a major waste of time. I don't think this book was well written. It's so hard because I don't want to bash the book, but I have opinions on it. Mainly being that this is not good and that this is probably going to be one of my least favorite books of the entire year just because the premise was there, but the execution, like I said, was just poorly done. So a brief summary. This is pitched as Nightmare Before Christmas meets Red, White, and Royal Blue, but you should know that I can see where they're going with that pitch, but not really. The other pitch that we're kind of given is that we have our two main characters. We have our Christmas prince, who is Nicholas or Cole, and then we have our Halloween prince, who is Hex, and they are in a rivalry because of their holidays and because they are both courting the same girl. Yeah, I guess that's in there, but as I will discuss in the spoilery section, the rivals to lovers is not really there. It's not really a major part of the story, and so I want to say that this is definitely less of like a magical holiday rom-com and much more like this fantastical world with a dash of romance, a dash of the rivals to lovers, just a dash of a lot of things. So the main thing is that I saw a lot of people disliking this book or not really enjoying it once they got into it because they were expecting one thing and it ended up being another. I pretty much went into this book pretty blind, except that it was going to be Christmas Halloween Prince. I didn't really know the rivals to lovers situation. So I can honestly say that the pivot that this book takes from the premise to what it actually is doing was not my major problem. I don't think the marketing was the problem. I just don't think this book was well executed, and I have a lot of reasons for that. The pacing was really off in this book. The fantastical world building was never well explained, and it became a major focus of the story and the conflict. So for none of it to make sense and for me to have so many plot holes and questions, that was a major flaw to me. The characters are in a very insta-lovey relationship, and they go from not knowing each other basically to like dirty talk smut scenes, which was just really jarring and off-putting and really cringy. And another point is that this book is definitely not Halloween and Christmas. It is entirely Christmas, and this book just had a lot going on. We have our main protagonist who's just like a messy bisexual, always getting into disasters. Seems like something right up my alley. He is having problems with both of his parents for different reasons. Santa Claus is his dad, which is the main conflict and like the main villain of the story. A conflict with his best friend Iris. There's a conflict with his romance, obviously. There's a conflict with his brother, who he's very close with. And there's the whole conflict of what Christmas is actually doing to the other holidays and like the whole political fantastical element. So there's a lot going on. I am someone who likes a lot going on in their romantasy, who likes a lot going on in their romantic comedies. I like a lot of personal stuff to be going on, but it has to be executed well, and this was not executed well. It wasn't well balanced. Again, it wasn't well paced between everything. It wasn't well structured. It just, nothing was set up for any of the tropes to work well, for any of the elements to work well. It felt like the first draft. It felt like it needed another rewrite, another edit. It felt like it needed a lot of help, a lot of work. And so while the premise is there, book itself just didn't work. So before we get into more spoiler territory, I will say there are two things that I did enjoy. I really enjoyed the relationship between Cole and his brother. I thought it was really sweet that they were so protective of each other, and their relationship dynamic, particularly with how they were dealing with their mother who was not in the picture, felt really genuine and nice and good, and I liked that aspect in the story. Cole is really angry towards his mother, who has been divorced from their father for a while his brother has more of a back and forth with his mother but is still being really hurt by her. And the other aspect that I did enjoy about this book is that there is one scene where Hex is kind of showing his playful side, and he kind of like spooks people with his little spooky magic. I do really like when he has those moments. It really gave him a little bit of personality. He didn't get much more than that, but those cute little spooky moments were nice. I wish we had more of that, but when those moments shine through, I'm like, oh, he does have a personality. I do enjoy him. And so before I send you all away to decide for yourself if you want to read this or not, the content warnings and trigger warnings for this book that I caught were death of a family member in the past, an unhealthy coping relationship including the use of alcohol. There is another unhealthy coping interesting relationship, a sexual nature between Hex and another character in the past. There is emotional abuse by a parental figure. There are feelings of abandonment by a parental figure, and there is fear of physical abuse from a parental figure. So those are my non-spoilery thoughts. Basically, I don't think this book is worth your time. If you're looking for a holiday romance that's queer, I would highly suggest looking elsewhere because this one just annoyed me. Like, I have other holiday romances that didn't hit the mark, that didn't get much higher ratings than this, but this one I feel like was definitely the worst one I've read so far. So take that with a grain of salt. If you are especially forgiving for plot holes and plot conveniences, like your books to be weird fantastical elements with a lot of smut in the later half of the book, it takes a while to get there, you might enjoy this. I know people have been enjoying this. I just personally cannot figure out why someone would enjoy this. I can, but like, it's hard for me to recommend this to people because of my dislike of it. So stay with me as I get into spoilers if you want to know the exact reasons why. So our basic summary of this book is that this is an adult holiday romance novel where we have Nicholas Claus, who is the first son of Santa Claus and the heir of Christmas. Cole is a college student and a bit of a bisexual disaster, and he absolutely hates how his father has changed Christmas into this commercial holiday, but he has little faith in himself to like kind of combat this and to fix problems with Christmas. But when he finds himself dragged back to the North Pole by his father for the upcoming Christmas season and is about to be forced into a marriage of convenience with his best friend Iris, who is the Princess of Easter, Cole for the first time is feeling like he needs to really straighten out and really needs to figure out a way to fix these problems, and especially to wiggle out of this marriage that neither him or Iris want. And then the PR event is basically crashed by the Prince of Halloween, who's like, no, you cannot combine your two holidays. You cannot make a marriage of convenience between you two. That's too much power for Christmas. And is like, I'm also going to compete for Iris's hand. And oh no, Prince Hex is also the guy that a year ago Cole had a really drunken one-night kiss with in a back alley. That's what we're going into. It's a little convoluted, which I'm expecting for a Christmas novel, but you gotta make it make sense too, you know? Because I was ready for this to be silly. I was ready for it to not be good, but reached a line where it went from silly to like just goofy and not enjoyable to read, where I was slogging through the book just trying to finish it every single night. Because the book failed at being the rivals to lovers rom-com adventure that the book promised, but it also failed at being this like fantasy political rom-com a la Red, White, and Royal Blue too. Like, it failed both premises basically. I'm not disappointed that the rivals to lovers thing didn't happen like the marketing said it would. I was mad that the book itself promised it to and kind of set up this rivals to lovers thing to happen and didn't actually use it. The book starts off in that 1 year previous thing where Cole is having this like drunken one night snog situation with Hex, who he doesn't know is the Halloween prince. He's just had this breakup with Iris's sister, who never comes into the book, by the way. She's only there for this weird plotline thing. Cole is finding himself at rock bottom at this bar after he's been broken up with. He has this one night kiss thing with Hex, this one night magical like moment of, oh yeah, I should try and do better for myself. And that whole next year he is kind of like settling down. He's not really into trying to fix Christmas yet. He's like, hey, I'm gonna, you know, make something of myself or try to be better. And then for the Christmas season, he's forced back home and is like, yeah, you need to start getting ready to be heir of Christmas. I know you don't really want this, but you need to start doing that. But also, I'm not going to give you any privileges or power in Christmas, but you need to marry Iris. All of this takes like 70, almost 100 pages of the book just to like set up all of this stuff, to set up the idea that there is paparazzi that is watching Nicholas's every move, to set up that they are allowed in the Christmas palace, and, you know, he's coming home and like doing a lot of PR events. Like, it takes a long time, almost a third of the book, before we introduce the actual love interest again. So Hex comes in, he's like, no, you can't do this. I'm also gonna fight for Iris's hand. And behind the scenes, it's kind of known like, hey, Hex is never gonna win. We already have this thing set up. There's other stuff going on behind the scenes where the Halloween prince is never gonna make this happen. We're just gonna placate them and allow them to do the suit. And then from there, it starts the whole like PR event cycle where Iris, Hex, and Nicholas are going on these like little winter excursions, dates, doing all these events that they normally do as a Christmas family to start up the Christmas season. And like that's what I wanted, okay? Like, give me a schedule, give me like this routine of like all these stupid things that the Christmas family has to do for the paparazzi, for PR, all these like stunts kind of thing. Give me that, because that would give us a schedule. It would give us structure in the novel. It would give us all these events and planned things for everything to happen. It would give us tension with the paparazzi and like the forbiddenness between Hex and Nicholas as they start to have chemistry with each other instead of Iris. It would just give a lot of conflict really naturally, a lot of structure really naturally. But after we get 1 or 2 dates, this kind of whole structure kind of falls apart and it's not really important. The PR-ness doesn't really come to play that much. The paparazzi is always there and always a threat, but like they're never really important to the story at all. Like the news articles are not really important. So much missed opportunity for the rivals to lovers, for this like paparazzi thing to work, and it didn't utilize it at all. This was where the book was strongest for me, was in like those first 2 dates. There's like a skating date and like a sleigh driving date, and those were the strongest parts of the book because it's Hex and Cole talking to each other and having like this little bit of tension. But as soon as it drops away and as soon as they start to ignore events and not really doing anything, that's when the plot starts to like lose all structure and just like get really funky. Because for those first like 70, 130 pages, I could ignore that the world didn't make sense. I could ignore all the plot holes because I'm like getting like, you know, silly little events and dates and stuff. But it was such a short amount of time that those things were in the narrative. And again, as soon as they exited the narrative, things started getting funky. And like I said, there is no illusion that Hex is courting Iris. It is pretty much from the get-go that he is having feelings for Nicholas and Nicholas feels the same. There's no kind of tension as Nicholas is like, hey, you're hitting on my best friend, and yeah, I don't want to marry Iris, but I don't want you to either. Like, there's none of that. None of that is utilized. They're already like very interested in each other from the first date, and Iris is already trying to push them together because she sees this. And again, this is where the plot holes start to come in. What do you mean that Christmas and Halloween don't know each other? That the families don't know each other? I'm sorry. That doesn't make sense. It's all a big plot hole so that have the first scene of them drunk and making out, but like, is it really necessary to the narrative? No, it wasn't. So like, take that out and give us some like weird banter between the two because they've known each other for a while and have a lot of weird feelings about each other because of like their situation. Give me history. That will give me stakes. Give me these PR events that have to happen in a certain way with certain outfits, and that always happen in a certain way because of stuff, and add the courting into that. And what do you know? You start to have a structure. Start to have reasons and motivations for these characters to be interacting and to like have banter and chemistry with each other, and to also start to form like secret friendships and relationships. Because as soon as we leave this part of the novel, the next 2/3 are completely flat in a lot of ways, because the more you start looking at the world hard, the more you start dissecting it, the less it makes sense. You know, there's courts around the different holidays. Christmas is a big holiday. They have a bunch of different courts that are not just Christmas, that are like winter frost theme and a bunch of different things. Okay, that makes sense. They have a joy meter that they measure their holiday joy with, and that produces their magic, and they want more magic, obviously. And they have a bunch of other little holidays underneath them that tie their power into them. It's a weird holiday thing that we see a lot in holiday fantasy movies, so like, I'm gonna forget that. Who cares? You know, it's not that big of a deal. Those things don't need to make too much sense. How these holiday houses tithe to Christmas. Like, okay, we don't need to think about that. It doesn't need to make that much sense. But like, once I start to question like, wait, okay, so there's courts, okay, and there's like these whole holiday cities, like there's hundreds, thousands of people that are obviously helping to do Christmas, but there also seems to be people that are not involved in Christmas and just like live in the Christmas city. Okay, why are they there? They must have some type of connection or magical abilities. How does that all work? This whole fantasy world is hidden from the real world, and there has to be like cities around all the major holidays, not just a Western one, so how does that all work? That will never be explained. Don't ask those questions. I know we're getting distracted in this novel because we're very bored, and we're asking a lot of questions because nothing makes sense, but don't ask them because you're not gonna get any explanation for them. People seem scared that their holidays could be taken over by random family members. How does that work? How would magic even, like, who could replace Santa except like his son? You know, like, this is a monarchy, like nobody can just like come in and take Santa's spot. So like, I don't know how that works. You know, like, things start to get weird when you look at this world, And if the plot wasn't focused on this weird mafia holiday thing that's going on where Christmas is like tithing and like blackmailing all these other holidays, then I wouldn't have to look that deep. But like, it's making me look deep. Like, it's making it the main problem and it's making me look deeper. Okay, so let's say we ignore all of the holiday weird mafia stuff. This book is obviously trying to make some kind of talk about the relationship between consumerism and holidays. Why this book doesn't focus on the idea of tradition and community around holidays, I have no idea. Instead, there's this idea of like the holidays have to do more and that this one day of joy isn't enough kind of a thing. Is that what holidays are about? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's not going to make sense. All the themes of like commerciality versus like community and tradition are not going to make sense. They're not going to be explained. Religion, religious connection to Christianity, religious connection to Christmas. You think that's going to be talked about? Nope, we're blipping over that. I was so worried for how this book was going to deal with religion. I'm like, oh my god, it's just going to ignore it. It made like one little line about it and I'm like, ooh, is that what we're really going to do? Yes, one line about it. It's bad world building. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're talking about holidays. They are connected to things. They are connected to religion. I'm sorry, you gotta explain it. The book is also trying to talk about themes of like imperialism. There's definitely some colonial undercurrents here because Christmas is like coming in and like colonizing other holidays and trying to take over other holidays and be more important than everybody else. But are any non-Western holidays ever gonna be mentioned or really discussed or even named? You don't know about Lunar New Year. You don't know about Diwali. You don't know about any of the other wintertime holidays. You don't know about literally anything non-Western. And it just like does not make sense. Why are these holidays not named? Why don't they have a coalition against Christmas? Nothing makes sense in this book. Nothing is explained. Things that seem like it would be important for all this political fantasy mumbo jumbo is never explained. And that's the problem. This book might have been marketed badly, might not have been marketed to what the book is actually about, but that's not the problem. Because if this book is going to try and be a fantasy novel, if it's going to be a romantasy, it has to have the fantasy elements make a smidgen of sense. If you're going to bring in themes of colonialism, of capitalism, you gotta have them be a little bit more than surface level. If this is a rom-com and you make some comment about capitalism, I'm not gonna bat an eye. If you're gonna bring it into this bigger metaphor, it's gotta make some sense. So, okay, let's get past the world building. It's the weakest point of this novel. It does not make sense. I did not enjoy it. It's what the novel decides to focus on, and that's what really dragged the book down. We can exit this. Let's look back at the romance. So, like I said, the first third of the novel, you barely see Hex. He is a late stage entry. When we finally get him again, there is an instant connection that I thought was at first very cute. I really enjoyed it. And then at the 200 page mark, we are like nosediving right into cringy smut. Very cringy smut with dirty talk and just, it's a lot. And it's not just the dirty talk. If it was, I would just cringe and like move on with my life. The problem is the insta-love. The relationship has basically no scenes with each other before they are instantly attracted to each other, instantly in love with each other. They are already ride or die. They are already very committed to each other, and it's just not set up well. It's not developed well. And again, this is where I'm like, if they had a history with each other, if they knew each other, we could have skipped a lot of weirdness here. But no, we get insta-love. We get barely any development of the romance before they are nosediving into the I love yous. And on top of that, there are multiple sex scenes that I honestly skipped because I wasn't enjoying them. I skimmed them to make sure I didn't miss anything important. Nothing important was said. But it's like, it's not just insta-love, it was insta smutty, kinky. Okay, I've read fanfiction. It's not that kinky. It's just like, it's just cringy. It was just cringy dirty talk, and I did not enjoy it. And I was like, whoa, back up. You two don't know each other. Why are we already here? I missed some steps here. Because this is the point where I really dislike the book, because from that point we were either learning something about Christmas that Santa Claus was doing behind everybody's backs that was evil, or it was like a smut scene, and I was just like, okay, I cannot escape anything in this book because I don't like either of these moments. They're so bad. It was just so jarring to go from like these rom-com-y, fluffy, insta-lovey, over-the-top moments into like the weird underbelly of Christmas. Like it was weird and it was messy and it was just not well executed at all. For a lot of these books, you have to suspend your disbelief. You have to suspend that these characters fall in love with each other after a week. I know how Christmas Hallmark movie style books work. You gotta make it believable. You gotta have scenes of the characters together. And yes, there were scenes of the characters connecting with each other. There were a couple cute moments. There was a big leap, a very big leap from like the cuteness of meeting each other and learning about each other into the do or die, I love you kind of moments. The romance should have been the primary focus of this novel. It is a romance book. That is what it's categorized as. And if the romance was the focus, if the relationship developed a lot better, if I got more of that relationship, I feel like I would have a lot less problems and I would be a lot less nitpicky with all these little things and plot holes and stuff that didn't make sense and that didn't work. Because I am very forgiving with my adult queer romances. I just want a good time. I just want silliness. I just want over-the-top dramatic gays. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy. And this book, it set itself to be that. You know, there has to be some level of execution or else I'm gonna start tearing this book apart. Just everything in this book felt underdeveloped. The romance felt underdeveloped, the world building felt underdeveloped, and everything that made this book interesting, like the use of the paparazzi, like the royal courts, nothing was utilized to its full extent, and it just made everything feel really flat, and it made the reading experience very dry and very dull and very painful. If you're looking for that silly rom-com book to transition you from Halloween to Christmas, this is not gonna be it. There is no Halloween. This is a Christmas book. I'm sorry. For me, this book just fell flat on everything that it tried to deliver, and it just felt really underdeveloped. And hopefully my rambly opinions help explain why I felt this book was underdeveloped and why it didn't work for me. It's you can't touch on Iris facing racism and not have that be a bigger part of the book. You can't have this book talk about capitalism and not be a bigger part of the book. You can't have this whole world built around this weird tithing situation and this metaphor for colonialism and not have it be a better, well-explained thing. You can't set up this fantasy world that's gonna be a whole fantasy romance series and not have the world make any sense. I don't understand how anything in this world works. I don't understand why the magical world and the mundane world need to be separated. I don't understand why there's so many people in this magical world and how they came to be, or how anything works, or how they contribute to their worlds. I don't understand which holidays are included and which ones aren't. Nothing was explained. Nothing was well done. And even at the end of the day, the romance, which should have been the main center point, the thing that really made us look away from all the weird stuff that was going on with the fantasy stuff, it was just so underdeveloped and so poorly executed that I couldn't look away from the badness of everything else happening. You want a book with fun hijinks. You want a romantic comedy. You want the political intrigue and the paparazzi making a bigger part of the story. You want a darker underbelly for this court thing to be going on. You want a satisfying resolution. You know what I'm gonna recommend you? You know what I think you should enjoy instead of this? It's not Christmas themed, I'm sorry, but it is better media that is trying to do all the same things, and that's gonna be Princess Diaries 2. Ignore this, just rewatch Princess Diaries 2. I know you like that movie, and I know you think it's really good, and you know what? It is really good, and it succeeds in doing all the things that this book wanted to do. And hey, I know there's people out there that like this book. I'm sorry. I definitely have a problem, because when I start to read something bad, I start to think of all the things and ways about how I would change this book. And a lot of people would be like, okay, then you do it. You write this book. And the problem with that is that I wholly think that I could write this book better. I could do a better job of this. And that is my main problem with this, is that if I could not write this book, I at least think I could have been a much better editor or development team or even book agent for this book, because it needed a lot of work, a lot. And I have a lot of suggestions, which is not helpful because this book is already published. But I hope if you watched until this point, you can commiserate with me if you also did not enjoy this book. I hope that if you were thinking about reading this book, that my opinion helped you decide if this book was something that you're interested in or not. I hope you can at least have fun with me rambling on about why this book didn't work. I hope there was some form of entertainment in this at least, because this book just had me going in circles, unable to put thoughts together because of how many things were just not well executed with this book. And I can't believe that this book has such a high star rating. I really can't. That's the thing for me. Yeah, I had to be another voice in this story, because if you really want to read this book, I do not want to discourage you. You should read what you're interested in. Not that I think this book needs critique necessarily, but I just want to add my opinion out there, because this book was not good and I would not recommend it to people at all. No. And I normally try not to make such harsh stances on things because, again, you should be able to read what you want. I just want to warn people because this book was not executed well. It was not well done. It promised a lot and did not deliver, and there just needs to be a voice out there to let you know that this book did not work, you know? But I've been rambling on for way too long, so thank you so much for sticking with me if you stuck up to this point. If you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts were in a nice way, please. Sometimes on videos, people get a little antagonistic, and that's never my intent. I do not wish the author harm or wrong, and I do not think ill of them for writing this book. Like, I don't know, people get very personal about when they don't like a book, and obviously, like, I really didn't like this book for a lot of personal reasons, but I would never go off on the author personally, if that makes sense. So yeah, but I do want to know your opinions. If you like this book, I honestly do want to know what made you really enjoy it. Did you enjoy it despite it being bad? Because it was bad? I have books like that. I understand that. Or were there genuine things that you really enjoyed about this book? I would like to know that too. But thank you so much for sticking with me, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.